Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Build in El Salvador here at Sovereignty Studios. Today, we are doing our first ever reaction show sourced by the community, the Sovereignty Studios community on school.com. Basically, we had our community send, we just asked, like, hey, what have you been thinking about lately? Send us some content. We're going to watch it, we're going to react, and we're going to comment on Clown World. So I'm Jordan Herbs.
I'm Michael Ruiz.
I'm Paul Pendergrass.
All right, and we're all here today in Sovereignty Studios. Matias is back there, but we don't have a camera on him. There he is. So let's get started. The first thing we've got commented on was by Paul Pendergrass, and this is something about the UK stuff, which I guess we got to be careful about what we talk about here because the UK might try to extradite us. So.
Yeah, good to go?
Yeah, and sure.
Is at the core of policing. That's why, as police chiefs, we've been meeting regularly over the last few days, and we've decided to marshal thousands of police officers across the country. We've changed our tactics in the last couple of days. So besides marshalling more officers, we're brigading some of them at key strategic locations across the country to give us more agility to respond to wherever the protests are most intense, so that we can respond with agility and show.
So what's going on here?
So that the criminals and thugs.
So basically, there's been all these kinds of like riots. Mainly, well, there's been multiple sides of the riots. So there were apparently, from what I've seen, immigrant riots all over the place. People wearing masks, young military-aged men, and just wreaking havoc, doing violent things. And so then,
do we know why they're rioting?
I do not know why. No. As it goes, like they hate our way of life, right?
Paul, do you know why they're rioting?
I think it's planned. I think they might be paid.
Yeah, but what's the narrative that the news is?
Well, no, okay, that's the thing. So the narrative is about the counter riots, not even riots. It's just people going, like white people, like people like from the actual country, the natives going out and saying like this isn't cool and trying to like stand up to them. And then I saw a video of, I don't know all these details, right? But I saw a video of a bunch of these rioters in masks and stuff go up to some guy, like an owner of a restaurant, and they just like beat the shit out of him. And they're like kicking him. It's like, I think Max Kaiser retweeted it actually.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, whoa. And so, but then the narrative is that it's all these far right protesters. It's all far right riots. And so the whole thing is about you're not allowed to say what's going on with the actual riots or else it's hate speech or whatever. So that's what I understand of everything going on.
Gotcha. I haven't been paying attention at all. Feels good. I've not even clued into what's happening somewhere else across the world and all of that. You know, I see like London, England, where else? UK in general, Europe, parts of Europe.
Yeah, all of Europe mostly.
And America, they're just, yeah, they're in decline. They're captured. And you have a stronghold of, what do you call that? Bolsheviks, kind of like, you know, just communists entrenched into the institutions where, you know, things like this, they're against what Western society stands for. And they're going to use, you know, the institutions and the power within the institutions to dismantle it. Seems like it, you know?
You know what I was thinking about yesterday with this stuff going on with Maduro in Venezuela, how he apparently did not win the election, yet he won the election. And how, because our neighbor has a friend over who's Venezuelan, and his mom left Venezuela when Chavez got elected originally, like 20 years ago, because she said she knew this was going to happen. Like it's going to devolve into total fascism. And
so when I look at this, I just see it. The war may have been lost a long time ago.
yeah, right. Well, no, this is what I was getting at is I was thinking about yesterday how I remember back in the day, not too long ago, when I thought, and people like me believed that Europe was ahead of the game. You know, Europe was where we would go to escape from the United States when it got bad. And now when everything, you know, shit has hit the fan all over the place, now we're like, oh, wow, the United States is still actually kind of the last bastion of hope in at least that traditional Western world.
Yeah, and well, I have my qualms about that.
In the old paradigm I'm talking about.
Yeah, just because everyone that seems to be waking up in the U.S. still believes in the political system, right? And like the way to get, get things to back to where they were, or this idea of American exceptionalism and freedom and liberty is to vote our way there. And I think more and more people though are recognizing that, hey, there's got to be a different way because the whole political system seems captured. But maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. But we've talked about it before how there could be hope, when you get the right leader in there that actually does the right things. But I just don't think the right leader can get in there in the United States.
Well, that's why I believe more so in the power of localism, right? Like, hey, before you try to get like a good president in there, why don't you get a good mayor and then a good, good congressman, right? And then a good governor, because I feel like that goes a lot. Your effort in that political apparatus goes a lot further than the federal apparatus.
Yeah, you got to work your way up the chain kind of thing. Well, can you go to the tweet I put after that? It's Milei in Argentina commenting on all of that. And I hate to put a tweet from this certain user who I don't even want to shout out, but it is an English translation of what Milei is talking about, what Milei is saying. And I'll read it. And so he's commenting on England's transformation into a dystopian socialist nightmare where people are being imprisoned for their posts on X. We are undertaking a change of paradigm, not only economic, but also social, political, and cultural. And with this change, we are going against the direction that in recent times many countries in the world are undertaking. While other countries propose censorship, we propose freedom of expression. Look at just what is happening in England. Since the socialists came to power, they're putting people in jail for posting on social networks. Well, the journalists here would also like it because let's say they don't like that they have lost the mic, the monopoly of the microphone, and to be able to use that tool to distort and dirty slander at no cost. Social networks send them invoices and they don't like it. Stop looking for ghosts. They're receiving the same thing they did. Anyway, if you see him talk about it, it's a lot more animated. But yeah, it is interesting. And then that leads into the topic of like everyone talking about Kamala Harris, price controls and these things, and how apparently a lot of people are really into this idea of price controls.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
they would slander Bukele for it a month ago, and then Kamala Harris proposes it, and he's a savior.
Well, yeah, depends on who's talking, right? Like who's saying all of that stuff. But again, it just feels all inevitable. Feels like we're just watching a train wreck in slow motion. Like how it's gonna end, and it's just you see things just evolving on a daily basis. But to me, there's no really big surprises, right? Like if you look at all past regimes that have been taken over by communists, it always kind of devolves into chaos and violence and destruction. So, how far have these people taken hold of the institutions is the real question, and what's salvageable and what's not, and how far are they willing to take it is all that comes to my mind. But like it looks like they're willing to destroy society to get what they want, which is crazy.
It's crazy. Like there's no reason for them to give up. That's what I always think about is like sometimes when I get hope, like, yeah, everyone's fighting back, this is cool, like they'll never give up, and they essentially have unlimited resources for as long as there's a money printer.
They're like fire ants, bro.
Yeah, they don't disappear.
Yeah.
You have to keep spraying every month or they'll come back. The nest will survive.
It's crazy. It's just, it's a mind virus, right? Karl Marx, like we were talking on one of our podcasts, just kind of released a mind virus to the world. It's self-destructive and self-immolating. It's crazy.
Which is how he was.
Yeah.
Were we talking about on air or off air? But he was a total alcoholic. No one liked him, essentially. His family, like,
he was a scumbag to his family. He
Yeah.
left his daughters committed suicide, stuff like that. He was just a horrible human being, and it's no surprise that the world's most destructive philosophy came from him.
And it's just so bizarre. I mean, I graduated college in 2010 and I got a liberal arts degree. And I swear, until 2020, really, I thought all of that had a lot of merit. Not necessarily communism, straight up communism, but like socialism and these things. And I would go visit my friends in Europe who had health insurance from the state. And like, we don't have that in the United States. And I'd see their bills get covered and like, wow. And I'm so, wow, all this is like, it really worked out here. And like, that's just what I saw. And then once 2020 happened and everything has degraded since then, and obviously we see Europe in its condition now, and it's like, oh, whoa, like, have I been misled that long? Like, was I indoctrinated in my own college degree to think like this stuff was actually not so bad? I studied French history, learning about Karl Marx, like there's been periods and there was a yeah anyway, but even we've talked about that film The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. That was about Hugo Chavez. I remember watching that movie going, yeah, fuck yeah, and like turned out, look what Chavez turned out to be.
Yeah.
So there's like all of this misleading media and propaganda everywhere,
Dude,
and
that's
we
because
have no idea.
that's because they captured the school system, right? Like, this is what I'm saying. We have the Department of Education that's like spreading, straight propaganda from like the horse's mouth on, on all types of things, misleading kids. Not only that, but like connecting them to a narrative,
Camera needs to be plugged in.
that is misaligned with reality. And then when they grow up, they're like, oh my God, I guess that wasn't how it was. But it's like some people are too far gone, too far ingrained in the matrix that they just resist that initial wake up call. And they just being like, no, if I believe that, it's going to deconstruct my sense of identity too much. So I'm just going to continue to propagate this propaganda
Absolutely.
and live within these just live within these parameters, because if I try to rethink the world, it's just gonna cause too much pain, too much trauma.
Well, it's like they funneled me like right into it, and probably a lot of people in my generation, because we saw 9/11, we saw George W. Bush, all the wars, all this stuff, and we wanted to just get away from that. And then suddenly, traditional America was like, "Oh, let's go to war and let's invade Afghanistan and all this stuff that we didn't want." So we thought going the other side was naturally the solution, because obviously, look what capitalism brought us. Look what this American democracy brought us. So we start getting introduced to concepts like communism and socialism. We go, well, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then you get so far deep into it, which so many people already still are, you don't realize until it's too late. Like, oh, we got duped.
Yeah.
Like in Europe right now.
Cool. So what other clips we got?
I think we go into Bitcoin from here. So we don't really have a segue here.
Yeah, we have interview with Jack Mellers.
But it's in Germany. So it's in Europe.
Let's see.
Career in a wild last few years of my life, and she's hung in there, so she deserves a shout out. She's great.
How long are you together with her?
2.5 years.
Let's find something else here.
There was one question actually we prepared.
Are we just picking any
tell us
clip?
the story
Yes.
about your
Yeah.
dad. Why isn't he sitting
Who was
here?
this sent in by?
Because he didn't like to travel. He lives on the ocean, so why would he?
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if I were him, I'd just go to the beach, which he does. So that's why. But he, no, I mean, he.
We had a little discussion yesterday, a friendly discussion on the panel yesterday. Don't you see that perhaps there is a danger with the ETFs, that Wall Street is
There we
getting
go.
too mighty into the Bitcoin scene?
This guy has super
staking
typical
much
German
Bitcoin,
accent.
dumping them to get in at lower prices. So don't you can't share my suspicion?
I don't. I can appreciate the suspicion itself. Bitcoin is defended by the populace. The thing that defends Bitcoin is the honest actors within the system. So I can appreciate the fact that you are suspicious.
Yeah.
But I disagree with the validity of
Okay.
your suspicions. I don't think Wall Street can manipulate the price. I don't think them selling Bitcoin is a threat. And I don't think it's a bad thing that they want access to Bitcoin. I think it's logical.
But why can't they manipulate the price? Because you just said Wall Street is they're corrupt and blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so I think people draw a false analogous to gold. The problem with gold is gold centralizes. It's very hard to custody. It's very hard to verify. The reason the U.S. was able to leave the gold standard is because the U.S. held all the gold.
Yeah.
Now, if you have, if something like a precious metal centralizes, it's very easy to manipulate that. Bitcoin doesn't centralize. It does the opposite. The fact that Satoshi put it out on an email list of cypherpunks and then say, you guys got it from here, all the Bitcoin's already distributed. We're already at 19 million out of 21 million. So many of it's lost. It's already gone. Even if Michael Saylor and BlackRock, I mean, Saylor's been borrowing ungodly amounts of money to buy this thing. And
You think it's a good idea, actually?
yes.
Okay.
But he's barely eclipsed 1%. How much would you have to own?
All right, can we?
have a
I think
concentration.
he moving on to a different point, but
Well,
I want to
yeah.
talk about that actually.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much I agree with that. I think that Wall Street can indeed manipulate the price, and yeah, gold centralizes, right? You got to keep it in the vault, and therefore it's hard to redeem. And so when when you want your gold back, or you want to redeem your gold certificates, or your whatever they are, the paper contracts, it takes a while, and they got to source the gold, they got to get the gold to you, so people don't do it, right? They just settle in dollars. And the idea is that with Bitcoin, you can just ask for your Bitcoin and sent to you through cyberspace. So like it's just easily redeemable, and so therefore it's really hard to manipulate, because if there's anyone who's inflating the amount of Bitcoin they have with paper contracts, they'll get caught and they'll go under.
When I hear someone like Jack Mallers talk about something like that, when I hear Michael Saylor talk about something like that, when I hear anyone that has a huge company invested in Bitcoin and everything to do with Bitcoin, not just Bitcoin as an asset, I just immediately think of narrative. And why would Jack Mallers agree? It's not in his best interest to even think about. It doesn't matter if Wall Street's manipulating it or not. Like, he still wins. Like, Saylor still wins. Like, I don't know enough about Wall Street, just like I don't know about what's happening in England. I don't know enough about Wall Street to like know if they're able to manipulate things with the ETFs. I would imagine there's some fuckery they're capable of because they are connected to the money printing situation, but I don't know. He does have a good point that Saylor's buying ungodly amounts of Bitcoin and he still barely has 1%.
Yeah, but and that's what I'm saying. What is the price of Bitcoin based off of? Is it actually based off of spot Bitcoin, or is it based off of paper Bitcoins that are traded on open markets, right? Or traded in regulated markets or whatever it is? And I think it's more of that. And if that's the case, and there's a whole bunch of paper Bitcoin out there because the ETFs and nobody's really making on-chain transactions with them and reclaiming their Bitcoin. They're all held by third-party institutions. So there's all these paper derivatives of Bitcoin out there. So if that's if that's the instrument that's determining the price, then in my opinion, yeah, it can be manipulated.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we'll know later on this year, next year, because as far as I've noticed in the last couple cycles, the halving happens, and it's not till the end of the year, months and months later, that we start to see the real movements.
There was a movement called Proof of Keys, or I mean, probably still goes on, but it was more popular a few years back, where I think it was January 3rd. It was just reclaim your keys off of any third parties that you have it and see if they're solvent. And that would really, that would make me more confident. Like if the, Bitcoin ecosystem and community did it as a whole, right? And there was like a large, it's basically a forced audit on the institutions when you do that. That would give me a lot more confidence that the price wasn't manipulated. Makes sense?
Yeah. Good luck with that, though. All right. What do we got next? I think it's another money. It's like a documentary Max put on about central bank fuckery.
Before we go on, Petey Pablo, you got anything to add?
A point that you made earlier about the Department of Education, how they operate eerily aligns with Department of Correction, right? The school bus is yellow. You have the bus that carries prisoners. It's the same vehicle, just painted a different color. The food that they serve in the school cafeteria is eerily similar to the food that they serve in the prison or jail cafeteria. I believe that through these institutions, they've programmed us a certain way and people don't want to admit that they've been duped because, as you said as well, it'll shatter your whole reality.
When were we talking about that?
We're talking about that in regards to the propaganda that's disseminated through the institutions. And then I
Yeah.
was saying how
Okay.
they even captured the school systems.
The school systems, I mean, they told us right to our face, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, they've coupled food and drugs together. And we see it here as well in El Salvador and through Latin America, how big food from the United States has infiltrated the culture here through processed sugary goods,
Seed oils.
seed oils, high fructose corn syrup. You know, it hurts my soul truly. So there's my little piece on
I
that.
feel like the education system was kind of a scam to begin with because it started in the late 19th century when industrialism came around. And the whole idea was like put kids into education like an assembly line, you know, like instead of what are they good at? How can we nurture certain skills? Like, no, that's their age. They go in that line, they go in that line, then they go up to that one, then they go up to that one. You got to remember, like before that era, there weren't clocks. There was no way to there wa- there wasn't a way to get like organized as a society to have corporate offices, corporate warehouses.
You lived by the sun.
Yeah, and I mean, just imagine trying to get a workforce into your manufacturing line by 9 a.m. Right? Like until the industrial revolution was happening, like we can't really even fathom what average life must have been like, and that's essentially when we went from a homeschooling society to a mass indoctrination society when it came to our children.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely. Granted, it didn't happen overnight.
I feel like homeschooling is just raising your kids to be good humans.
I mean, that's what everyone did for thousands of years. You just taught your kids what to do to live their life, and then now suddenly you got to go to school. You got to get degree papers, certificates.
Well, you know what? I think that paradigm is being shattered a little bit slowly. You know, like I think the homeschooling numbers in the United States are highest than they ever been, and they're only growing because people are recognizing that the school system has been captured, right? And then also, you just look at the quality of human beings that are produced by the public education system, and the quality that has gone down over the past decades. Yeah, there's obviously a problem, and I think that people are starting to wake up to it. Over here in El Salvador, there's a big homeschooling community, well, expats and stuff like that. So, and I think that with online curriculum and online communities now, first of all, you can gain inspiration from somebody doing it and say, "Oh, if they can do it, so can I." Look at the circumstances that they're in, and they still get by. Another aspect about it is, you have help, you have suggestions, you have community. You don't feel like you're in it alone. Um, where I would feel like uh, for the past few decades, homeschooling wasn't the norm, and it was really ostracized and insulted by the mainstream media, right? And so, yeah, I just see a cultural shift happening. So
Yeah.
screw the old, Prussian education system.
Yeah, right. All right, what's this next video?
The next video is the Great Taking documentary. And I remember checking this out when it came out, I think in like February. And it was very blackpilling, and like maybe that provided a little bit of fuel for me to get out of there and move to El Salvador. But
So black pilling is necessary, right? Some of the fear is necessary to shock people out of their comfort zone a little bit.
yeah, and this brings all the trickery that the fiat world does, especially the banker class, into the forefront. So
let's see.
Like, check out the part of it.
Discussion of how they will start over again when the Central Clearing Party collapses, and explicitly that they will not put more capital behind it, but they have pre-funded the startup of a new Central Clearing Party when one of the existing ones fails. So it's essentially planned, and the entire capital base of depository trusts, so essentially the entire U.S. securities complex, is housed there and all derivatives. The entire capital is $3.5 billion. individual banks have derivative positions the size of the global GDP. So something will happen to trigger this collapse, implosion. I would say the cake is already baked at this time. It's been made to happen because to take interest rates after having kept them at zero for 15 years, which was insane to begin with and did not have to happen, was made to happen. And then in essentially a year to take that back to over 5%. And if you're noticing, they're not stopping.
I think we get the vibe.
Continuing up.
Boring. That's the most viewed part of that documentary on YouTube. That's the bump.
It's basically, yeah, it's your fear porn, fear propaganda. It's highlighting all the cracks that are being exposed right now within the fiat system, and how, so many people now depend on third parties that are becoming insolvent, and all the scams and all the Ponzi schemes are going to be revealed, and a lot of people are going to be left out to dry. I almost forgot what how that went.
When life gives you pie. Yeah, I don't know. I've never like had money, and the only like little bits of money I've ever been able to save, I just do it in Bitcoin. I can't imagine feeling comfortable with, if you have massive amounts of wealth, just trusting it to whatever banks, funds.
This is why Bitcoin is
management,
so great, right? I don't have to trust any institutions.
Yeah.
I don't have to take someone's word. I don't have to worry about all the cracks in the system. It's like block after block. Every 10 minutes, it's being churned. My transaction goes through. Yeah, I got to pay a fee, but I know that it's censorship resistant, and it'll make its way through when there's room in the mempool.
It's interesting how we kind of talked about this with Fabian about going into new paradigms and how the technology allows us to do that. But it's interesting how this gatekeeping has evolved with banks, with these institutions over the decades, because there was no alternative, right? And now there's an alternative. It's easy. It makes more sense. Bitcoin is the technology that allows us to move forward. And now that we're like ingrained in that new paradigm of Bitcoin, we look back at that one, we're like, what a friggin' joke. Like, not, it's inefficient, all this, but just look at all the added bullshit they add in just so they can be the official gatekeepers of wealth.
Yeah.
Of money.
It really exposes like what they went through in order to acquire power and wealth. Like the amount of, just, what would you call that? Malevolence.
Big
And
words.
well, anyway, speaking of Bitcoin, man, I'm excited about adopting Bitcoin. What about you?
I am also excited. It should be a fun conference. Tell us about it, Michael.
Adopting Bitcoin is the ultimate high signal conference happening here in El Salvador in November. Highly recommend you get your tickets. And if you do, use discount code Soft Studios. And if you're going to make it all this way, you might as well also get a privileged access pass and hang out with us all in the VIP area, and also get invited to exclusive satellite events and dinners, and rub elbows and shake hands with the speakers and the people that are doing big things in Bitcoin. And also, potentially finding a place for you here to work on some projects and build out the circular economy, because we need the tools to do so,
And that's what's beautiful about Bitcoin. And, this conference is a good example of it, is people are building this not because it's going to give them more control or power. I mean, maybe power in some indirect ways, but everyone's doing this together. It's a community effort to make Bitcoin into reality, a Bitcoin standard. Whereas when you have this banking system, everyone's doing it for very selfish reasons.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And speaking of the collaborative, kind of spirit behind all of this here, Max and Stacy are going to also be at Adopting Bitcoin speaking over there, so that's pretty cool. They helped us out with our retreat, and they'll also be speaking at Adopting Bitcoin. So if you want to see them, that's also a chance to do so.
It's always a great show, ladies and gentlemen. It's always a
Mm-hmm.
great show.
Max and Stacy bring the energy.
All right. Well, do we have any other Clown World updates? That's the rest of our list.
I just want to say I'm glad I'm not paying attention to Clown World, and we got our blinders on, and we're working, and we're building towards the future, and we're doing something productive. I feel so much healthier. Like my well-being in general has gone up because of that.
You know, it feels kind of backwards doing a Clown World show because it's like, oh man, like I got away from that.
I
vibe.
know.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, it's fun, but it's also like, you know, this whole past week we've been so busy that we haven't paid attention at all, and now you realize, oh yeah, the world is going crazy.
The world's going freaking nuts. Yeah, and I'm just glad. Yeah, I'm just so glad we're here.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking about the inevitable trip I have to make back to the United States for something.
Isn't it
I'm
funny,
like, ugh.
dude? I have like right now, I have no desire to go back. Check on my house or check
What's
out.
The point?
Yeah, I'm like I'm kind of good here. Like I'm working, we're busy, we're doing a lot of things, and like I said, I feel like it's all this energy is going towards something productive and building out the future, and so it's like, I don't know, to step back into the U.S. and the Matrix and all of that stuff and all the craziness with the woke agenda and
I just love how the people we meet here, people we hang out with here, everyone's doing something cool. Everyone's excited to talk about these same things. No one's all scared and no one's living in that fear bubble like everyone in the United States. There's like, you can just connect with people here and be excited together. And
yeah, when my friends came to visit a couple months back, it was in June, Pride Month. It was just refreshing. We didn't even, we got home and then you log on Twitter or whatever and you realize, oh, there's this whole like pride thing going on. But like walking through the city, it was just refreshing not to be bombarded with propaganda and just be able to live and interact as human beings without all this messaging bombarding you, And I don't think people realize what a breath of fresh air that is until they get out of that environment.
yeah, well, that's definitely like a layer above the normal messaging we have to deal with because we still have to deal with Coca-Cola advertisements here and billboards.
And Pepsi.
No, it's more Pepsi, huh, than
No,
Coca-Cola
Pepsi's
here.
trying real hard.
We've talked about this before, and I really didn't think it was that big of a deal, but since you brought it to the forefront of my consciousness, I've been recognizing the advertisements more and more and just how hypnotizing they are, right? Like that's really strong, suggestive advertising. Almost feels like an assault to your consciousness.
It is an assault on your consciousness. And then we just act like it's normal and like it's okay. Like we complain about Pride Month propaganda, but we're not complaining about Pepsi propaganda. It's everywhere, It's like, even I always think about this, like the clothes you wear often have the logo of the brand. It's like they're not paying you to advertise for them. You're paying
it's the status thing though. That's
guess.
why people wear it because and it also signifies or signals that you're in some type of subculture and you're I think that's where the logo thing comes from, but you're right. You're
just
still
how twisted everything is.
I want to wear shirts with logos of things that I support.
Absolutely.
Even content creators that I support. I'm going to start buying their shirts to wear on the show here just to be like, yeah, man, I support this dude.
Like a Mr. Beast shirt.
Absolutely not. That's some Clown World stuff right there for sure. I feel like
yeah, there was that drama a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I feel like Mr. Beast is the main Clown World propaganda disseminator.
So I saw one conspiracy theory when all that stuff was happening about, I don't know, the trans pedophile and his team. I don't know the details, but everyone was going, oh, wow, this is going to like blow it up. Mr. Beast is going to be dead. But I saw one conspiracy, not dead, but like, his brand is going to die. I saw one conspiracy theory about how Wall Street is behind Mr. Beast. And he's just another, like, how did he blow up so fast? Dude, came out of nowhere.
The new currency is influence in the information age. It competes with Bitcoin. Like, influence is a lot of power. And Mr. Beast has millions. Like, I was surprised. Like, I didn't realize just how big of a reach he has. And it's not just in America. It's worldwide.
He probably has close to 1 billion. I'm gonna look that up. It's crazy. Imagine we were talking about this in the car. Imagine if one day he decides to have an opinion about something like political or whatever. It's gonna be powerful.
Yeah. I mean, he's already talked about running for president, that he would do it if they lowered the age. And it's like, that's a dangerous situation, because all of a sudden you have all these young kids growing up idolizing Mr. Beast, and then he grows up with all this power. And all of a sudden he has all his little minions from all over the world wanting to do whatever Mr. Beast says to get some of that clout. It's kind of like, technology, information technology and media technology, and where it's gotten to today. We're entering new waters where we've never seen someone's voice being able to be projected this far into the world, and what impact that can have is still yet to be seen, in my opinion.
July 5th, 2024 has 290 million subscribers as of June 27th, but I don't think that's calculating the international audiences. I think that's literally just his English normal YouTube channel, because he's got like a
Well, he has-
Japanese one.
yep.
He's got all these different languages, and he gets like famous actors to do his voice, which I think is cool. He's got his charity one.
You know what I think happens with these people? Like, if you look at us, for instance, and hey, we're doing our thing. We got a podcast. We got, on the surface, a media and events company, and we're starting to gain traction now. Like, I think what happens is that these influencers, they gain traction on their own, and then they get approached, similar to the whole Hollywood situation, right? And they say, hey, we see what you're doing, we like what you're doing, but we can take you to the next level. All you got to do is play ball with us.
You think they did that with Mr. Beast?
I think so. I think they've approached a lot of influencers and basically presented them with an offer
That
with
they
the
can't
devil.
refuse.
That you can't refuse.
Well, they've been doing that in Hollywood forever. Hollywood is probably CIA psyop. They've influenced culture and behavior.
Yeah, so
since
why
it
would it be
started.
any different? The other thing about Wall Street approaching Mr. Beast is that they own YouTube, and who's controlling the algorithm at YouTube, right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of really good content out there, but has any of it blown up as quickly as Mr. Beast did? I don't know. But also on the other side of it, like, you look at his YouTube channel, you can watch him grow.
Well, that's
he
what-
has
well,
every
that's-
video on there since the beginning.
Well, that's what I mean. They get to a certain point, and then the big dogs come in and say, "Okay, you're getting a little too much influence here. You're gonna either play ball with us, or we're gonna, tear you apart."
Or it's over,
Yeah,
or you're not going to make it any further.
yeah, something like that. I could imagine for sure something like that has happened.
Did they send him to El Salvador for intel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get that knock on the door by the CIA.
But here's the deal, and this is where I think what you do, Jordan, comes into play, right? Because how do you counter that? Well, you have to develop your own influence and be a counter message to what Mr. Beast is doing, or to what all the degenerate influencers are doing, right? Like, I firmly believe that it's going to take normal people to develop themselves and the leadership qualities within them and develop influence, so they can start making an impact in the capacity in which they can. And whether that's just, their family, or whether that's goes broader to the community or even further, like, it's the people's opportunity right now to, to start influencing the world. And we
And-
have the tools to do it.
An influencer is different than a creator. This is how I like to look at it.
But
An influencer makes content, builds an audience just so they can take sponsorship money and then say, "Oh, buy this VPN or go to Target or whatever." A creator builds their audience based on essentially something they want to sell. That it's like their business. It's like what they're doing.
So it's more authentic.
That's what I'd like to say. And a creator would have influence. You still would have influence. It's just in that realm of the authentic value you've provided. It's like, yeah, sure. If I'm a political commentator on Instagram, on YouTube, and yes, that influence is going to be in the realm of politics. But if it's, making content, whatever, then it's that. But here's the thing, is that influence isn't just about taking sponsorships. It's about the behind the scenes as well. And so that influence you suddenly have the power to make then becomes like an ethical question. And I feel like if you go that creator route because you're authentically trying to provide value to the world, it it's much smoother. It's much easier to just like you don't even need a big audience to be a creator and be successful and have a business, based on the content you're creating. You really don't need an
Yeah,
audience
but
isn't the goal.
okay, so I get all of that, but put it in the context of influence, because whether you're a creator, if you're a creator, you're still developing influence, right? And so what I'm trying to say is like to counter a lot of the degeneracy coming from clown world, right? Become an authentic creator. Try to figure out how to provide value to the world, right? And then also market it and sell it, and that is that a byproduct of that is going to be influence, and then you get to have an impact on the world as a result.
Right. That was in my post today, right? Because it was a clip from one of our shows where we're talking about we don't know what's real anymore. Like videos we see, people like Biden on stage could be hologram. Everything we see could be AI generated. And so, what's the solution to that? Is you follow people that you know are real, not just because they look real or showing their faces, because their message rings true to your humanity, your
Yeah.
intuition.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we can each have an impact. That's why, I believe that content creation, well, first of all, developing out a skill set, um, figuring out, your market for it, and then developing content to broadcast that out to the world and finding success in that is kind of a path towards sovereignty, towards, independence and freedom. And then on top of that, you can also be a good example for others to follow as well.
Yeah, it's the ultimate path in my book. I always wonder, like, how there's this trend of going back to more raw content, like less editing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if it's just going to keep getting more and more raw as the AIs get better to be able to imitate you and imitate like real human motion. Like, what is it like? When is it going to be the guy who sucks on camera, who's like awkward? Like, that is going to be the most authentic thing people want because, the AI would never generate that.
Yeah. Well, I think I think there's just cookie cutter content that's always going to appeal to the masses, right? And then those people that want more authenticity, want more human connection, they're going to be able to recognize that easily when it shows up on video. And they're like, yeah, hey, I like that guy because he makes it clear he doesn't have it all figured out, but he's, providing value in some other type of way, and it just feels like a human connection. This is, and you naturally gravitate that. I think that human beings, social creatures, we want our reality confirmed, and when everything's too perfect, it's like it kind of loses that magic.
Well, that's the power of storytelling. You start telling your story as a creator, like these are my goals, this is what I'm doing. You share your challenges, and then people can relate to that.
That's why I like our build in public shows, because people can really gravitate towards it because we're just putting it out there, good or bad, the experiences we had and what we learned from them. And it's a story. It's our story of us building here in El Salvador and what it takes. And it's raw, it's real, it's authentic, and people want that because deep down I think everybody, they want to go after that dream, they want to go after that goal, right? But they might not have the mindset to do it, or even the idea that it's possible. And so when you tell them, hey, yeah, this is how it is, this is how we overcame, they might connect with a lot of that and be inspired to try themselves.
Yeah, and imagine if we had B-roll of all the things we're talking about that we had to overcome, like took it to the next level. I'd be like, oh, well, maybe I don't need to aspire to that.
Yeah, or they might get scared away,
Yeah.
right? So, this is what Hermosi talks about, and I really like it, and this is why I was doing my vlogs on YouTube. It was, imagine if Jeff Bezos or all these, great entrepreneurs, filmed their early days and, and had a vlog or some type of, log journal that talked about the struggles that they went through, how they overcame, how they solved problems. Like, that'd be invaluable in a lot of ways, right? Because it's real experience, authentic experience from someone who's gone from the bottom all the way to the top. That's why like that Jeff Bezos, picture of him in Amazon when it's like written in marker or whatever.
In his Civic or whatever.
Yeah,
His
or
old-
it lets you know like, oh yeah, you everyone starts from the bottom, man, and they from nothing, and an idea gets born, and then they work it out all the way to a product or a service. And it's
Right.
a process.
I think that's a good ending point.
All right. Well, cool. Thank you all for listening. It was a great show. And anything else, Jordan?
Thanks for visiting. Thanks for visiting. Thanks for listening. Thanks
Nope.
for watching.
And Paul, you want to say goodbye?
Adios.
Adios, amigos. And we'll see you around. Peace.